We're recording. We're recording. Okay. Wonderful. Okay. Okay. So today, um, I just wanted to first off, you'll note that I've posted a lot of scores for the reflections. I've been trying to streamline that process, so I haven't been commenting on them. I do want to assure you though that I am reading them, and I want to start out with that, talking about that today. Um, I am very much humbled, and in many cases in awe of what you all are writing, what you all are experiencing, how you all are approaching the various challenges that not only, being first semester college students and in many cases first generation college students, but also, the fact that we're doing this amid a pandemic, amid a tumultuous period in our hi Kristen, amid a tumultuous period in our country right now as well. So I mean, you all are accomplishing a lot, and I have to say that, I mean, when I started the practice of the weekly reflections for my students, my goal was essentially founded on the idea that the more that you write, the better writer that you become. And I think that that is happening. I think that as you write your reflections each week, you're becoming more confident writers. A lot of you are, engaging in using metaphor. A lot of you, your personal voice is coming out in the reflections. And again, that's not necessarily a requirement of the reflections, but it's something that's happening because you're engaging in it, each week, and you're becoming more comfortable um, with who you are as writers and casual writers, formal writers, etc. Um, I do want to reiterate, and I apologize to you who are on the call because you hear this often, but um, it is absolutely 100% paramount that you turn everything in on time, because essentially your grade for the course at the end is based on two concepts. One is completeness, and the other is timeliness, right? So it's essential because ultimately the course is based on effort, right? And it takes effort, as you all well know, right, to turn in stuff on time because you got so much going on in your lives. Some of you have far more going on in your lives, frankly, than I do. You've got these incredible schedules. You've got all these responsibilities. You've got all these aspirations and everything that you're all trying to juggle. And a lot of you are doing it quite well and quite admirably. But so that it takes a lot, to turn in your stuff on time. So that in and of itself is effort. The other is completeness. And in the case of these reflections, for example, 1 1/4 pages is not 2 pages, and it says minimum 2 pages on those reflections. So, you need to have minimum 2 pages on the reflections. All right, I don't want to dwell on that too much. Moving on to the profile project. Um, so the profile project, the initial draft is due this weekend, right? A lot of you are well into it. A number of you have mentioned in your reflections that you've already done your interviews or you have a plan for your interviews. A lot of what you're thinking about working on or are working on is really fascinating. Interestingly enough, a lot of you, I would say at least, that I've come across, five or more of you are talking about 9/11, which is good. That was, I would say, of my generation. I was 25 uh, at 9/11, and I would say of my generation, that's probably the defining moment. For many of us, right? And so, yeah, I mean, it's perfectly understandable that you'd be curious about that and what it was like for those people. I remember, for example, growing up asking my mother, you know, what it was like when Kennedy was assassinated, you know, because for her generation, that was one of the defining moments, you know, Kennedy assassination, the assassination of Dr. King, and so forth, right? So, uh, you know, yeah, that's perfectly understandable that you want to know about that. So that's a really good topic. Now, just to reiterate, the only class out of four that has to have a career related profile project is the section that is also enrolled with Professor Vega's University 1301. If you're not co-enrolled in that class, you're not responsible for the career aspect unless you want to do something on a career. Okay, you can certainly do that, but you're not restricted to that. Only the students who are co-enrolled in Professor Vega's University 1301 must do something career related and must quote the secondary sources to that end. Okay, now, everybody must do a profile project. Somebody in their reflection said, I just read this email that said I'm not responsible for the profile project. No, 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 no. I never sent that out. No. What I said was, if you are not in Professor Vega's class, you do not have to do a career related profile project. Everyone is responsible for the profile project. Okay. It's just that if, you know, for most of you, what you write about is more wide open, right? The only criteria is that the person that you're interviewing has some sort of expert, and by expert I mean firsthand or inside knowledge or a unique perspective on whatever it is that you're investigating. And the other thing, the other criteria is that you need to be actually investigating investigating something that is of interest to you, you know, that you really want to know an answer about, you know, and certainly my previous example, you know, 9/11, you know, that counts, right? Because that is a moment that shifted, right? That shifted culturally. There was a cultural shift in the United States almost immediately following 9/11. I mean, certainly on college campuses, there were, you know, just as an example, and I'm not advocating this one way or the other, okay, but law enforcement, so on and so forth, around college campuses used to very, very clearly um, look the other way at marijuana usage. After 9/11, that was no longer the case. Okay, you know, so that, you know, 9/11 definitely had caused a cultural shift to the quote unquote right, as in capital R right, as in conservative. A lot of there was a definite conservative shift um, following 9/11 in many ways for a while in the United States. And some would argue that that's still kind of the trend in many ways. Um, but but anyway, in fact, you know, some would even argue that Bill Clinton, who is often touted as a liberal, was in fact not. You know, Clinton called himself an Eisenhower Republican. He's famously said or infamously said, "We're all Eisenhower Republicans here," which there's nothing wrong with being an Eisenhower Republican. In fact, in some ways, you know, that would be refreshing given today's political climate. But in any case, you know, historically, we can see that Clinton's crime bill actually did more to harm the African American and Latinx communities in the United States than probably any piece of legislation in the last 30 years, 30 to 40 years. And so, you know, Clinton is often touted as a hero by certain people, but in certain communities. But in fact, particularly if you watch the documentary The 13th on Netflix, it really lays this out. But you know, that crime bill you know, was really detrimental, and we're still feeling the effects of that. And arguably, that's one of the reasons that Hillary Clinton was not elected president in 2016, and we have the situation that we've been through the last 4 years. And again, you know, I'm not. Uh, how shall I say? I'm not um, advocating a particular political party over another. I'm talking about the behavior of individuals. Um, as a Texan, my 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 leanings are a bit strange because as a Texan, I do like guns, but that's hopefully you didn't hear that. If you did, hey, this is Zoom and it's Zoom. Okay, so anyway, that's enough of my diatribe for the moment. Or that wasn't a diatribe, to be fair. It's a kind of a tangent. But anyway, the point being is that, you know, 9/11 is an example of something that was kind of a touch point, right, for a lot of people. So it's understandable that you would want to know about that and want to understand, you know, what was going through the minds of people who are significant to you, you know, at that time, and how did that affect their lives? You know, I had one friend who, for example, after 9/11, he stopped stealing cable. You know, I mean, that doesn't seem you know, all that significant, but to him it was like you know, it's for him it was like a line in the sand. 9/11 was a line in the sand. He's like, either you're a good guy or you're a bad guy, right? And to him, you know, if he was going to be a good guy, he couldn't steal cable anymore, right? So, you know, stuff like that, and you might uncover, you know, interesting stories like that. Now, I have a lot of friends, because I went to college in a town that has a lot of Iranian people in it, and and you know, you may or may not know, Texas has a lot of Iranian folks, a lot of Iranian folks, a lot of Indian folks, as in Indians from India, a lot of Vietnamese folks. Um, right. And so I went to college in a town with a lot of Iranian families, and they were terrified. They were absolutely terrified after 9/11. Okay. Um, for very good reason, as it would turn out. Although, to President Bush's credit, he did go on TV, and maybe some of the people you interview will talk about this. He went on TV and said that, you know, that Islam is a religion of peace, and the people who did this were not true Muslims. Um, Now, he part of the reason why he did this, and this is very astute on his part, the part of his people, is they said, Mr. Bush, these people, as in Muslims, voted for you. They of all these people voted for you. You know, these are your constituents. You know, so you don't want to throw, you don't want to, you know, cast them aside, right? Because so that was a very important and very astute move on President Bush's part. Um, and historically, that's not just a Muslim thing. When immigrants come to the United States, historically they tend to vote very, very conservatively, because the immigrant mode, and a lot of you know this from your own families, right? The immigrant um, uh, attitude or plan or what have you is, we're going to work, we're going to make money, we're going to provide security for our families, right? That's why we came here in the first place. We're going to provide security for our families. It's the subsequent generations, right, who become educated and who, you know, are more integrated, quote unquote, into the society, that tend to become more progressive. But first generation immigrants, they're like, just shut up, just shut up and work, right? Don't make any waves, right? That's the immigrant attitude. That's the immigrant model, right? And so President Bush was, and I commend President Bush for that. I do. I think that, had he not done that, had he not come out and said, um, you know, the 9/11 attackers are not true Muslims, had he not come out and said that, we could have had a horrible, 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 horrible situation. As far as hate crimes and stuff like that, and there were hate crimes. In fact, there are more hate crimes against Sikhs than Muslims in a lot of places because Sikhs wear turbans, right? Sikhs wear turbans because they don't cut their hair ever. Male Sikhs don't ever cut. Well, no Sikhs cut their hair, but the male Sikhs, they don't cut their hair. They keep it up in the turban, and people who are uneducated and so on and so forth, they thought that was it. They saw the turban, they thought, ooh, turban Muslim. No, turban equals Sikh. But anyway, and of course you had the whole birther movement saying that President Obama was not born was born in Kenya, and that he was a Muslim, and all of this kind of stuff. That was absolutely ridiculous, and I don't say that. The only reason that I say that it's absolutely ridiculous is because data shows that it's absolutely ridiculous. And as a matter of fact, President Obama's pastor was a pastor by the name of Jeremiah Wright, and President Obama got into a lot of trouble when he was elected. He was a very, very, very controversial. Jeremiah Wright was a very, very controversial figure because he said some very, very controversial things that could be construed as anti-white. And when I heard what Jeremiah Wright said, my thought simply was that these folks that are saying that Jeremiah Wright is anti-white have just never been to a black church, right? Because what Jeremiah Wright said was pretty much what goes on in black, and I love black church. I do. I'm not a member of a black church, but every black church that I've ever visited has treated me with the utmost respect and so on, and I, but yeah, Jeremiah Wright was not a racist. Jeremiah Wright was coming from the tradition of the black church. And Obama, see, I'm gonna say something critical about President Obama, see, so y'all can't say, oh, my teacher just says critical things about Republic. No, I'm about to say something critical about President Obama, and this is on video, so everybody can. President Obama threw Jeremiah Wright under the bus. President Obama just, disassociated himself from Jeremiah Wright when the criticism of Jeremiah Wright started coming out. That was, he shouldn't have done that, right? He also should not have he also shouldn't have put his name on a healthcare bill created by Harry Reid and Nancy Pelosi. Anyway, but the quote unquote Affordable Care Act / Obamacare is a totally different topic, which if you want, you can write on about in ENGL1302. But anyway, so profile project. The best way for me to help you with this, honestly, is for you to, if you have any specific questions on how to proceed with your profile, because all the material is there, right? All the material is I believe it's in either the week 9 or the week 10 folder, really, or actually a combination of the two, that you'll essentially need to draft that project. If you have any specific questions, I'd be more than happy to engage with you on those or with those via text. I would much rather you text me using the number that's on the syllabus than email me, okay? And I've tried to make that clear in the past, but it hasn't always gotten across. And I get that, some of you are taking 5 classes and you've got crazy stuff going on and everything. But please, if you have a specific question, text me. I will get back to you much quicker that way. The reason being is that I get inundated. I mean, you all get inundated with emails all the time too, so you understand what that's like. Um, so I don't get inundated with texts on that particular number. So if I get a text from that number, it's either going to be spam or it's going to be a student. so um, so anyway, because nobody else has that number except for y'all. Okay. Uh, all right. Um, any questions that I can talk about, that I can address, with regard to the profile project? Again, just anticipating some questions maybe. If you want to integrate pictures, you certainly can. Okay, but like I was talking about, and I think I mentioned in a previous video, previous check-in, right? Uh, you know, if you're going to integrate a photo, you use it just like you would use any other piece of evidence. In other words, you talk about the photo in context. You don't just put a photo in there, right? You talk about what's going on in the photo in the body of your text, right? And you talk, and more to the point, you talk about the meaning of what's going on in the photo. What's important about what's going on in the photo? How is that, you know, getting across what you were talking about, right? How is that enhancing what you're talking about? Again, and I probably, just for the sake of redundancy, and redundancy in a good way, I'll probably repeat this in every connection point with you for the rest of the term. Is, if you learn one thing in the term, learn this, and that is that when you are integrating evidence into a piece, whether that evidence be, in your case, you know, text from an interview, whether it be secondary material, primary material. Incidentally, pause, you know the difference between secondary and primary material. Primary material would be, for example, me speaking right now, that's primary material. Secondary material would be you talking about me speaking, right? You commenting on me speaking, that's secondary, right? So primary material would be a work by Edgar Allan Poe. Secondary material would be somebody writing about a work by Edgar Allan Poe, right? All right, anyway, when you're integrating evidence, right, it's incumbent upon you, the author, right, or the essayist, right, to talk about, to explain the relationship between that evidence, right, and the point that you were trying to make. That is where your uniqueness, your genius, right, your technique, your talent, whatever, that's where that comes through, right? That's what makes your piece different than somebody else's, is your capacity to make that connection and how well you can make that connection. If you don't make that connection, right, that evidence, logically speaking, is useless. Okay, so I make that point actually in one of the pieces I shared with you. I believe it was the week before last, um, in that folder. I do hope that everyone kind of had a little bit of a breather last week, with not having to do a reflection. For a lot of you, it was an opportunity to take a breather. For others of you, it was an opportunity to catch up on material. Either way, I hope that that was beneficial for you. But again, I'm very much in awe of the work that you do. I'm very glad to be associated with you in this role, at present, and just keep up the work that you're doing. And if again, please, if you have specific questions about your profile projects, please do send me a text using the number that's on the syllabus. Okay. Anything else before we log off? Anything? Okay. All right. Again, just as a reminder, profile project initial draft is due at the end of the week. I will have that link up. Honestly, most likely tomorrow. I've got a fair, or maybe tonight. I've got a um, fairly busy afternoon, but I will get it up momentarily. Okay. All right. Thanks so much for your time as always, and please again, don't hesitate to send me a text. Okay. All right. Thank you so much.